one of those deliberate measures put in by the UN system to ensure that UN agencies pool their synergies and comparative advantages together to deliver, and to deliver in this case on issues of gender-based violence and also violence against young girls.
Now, looking at the statistics that we have about GBV, not just for young girls, for boys as well, and for women, how worried are you about what we hear coming out of not just Africa, but Nigeria now? How worried are you about the spike that you see in the numbers?
I am extremely concerned and extremely worried. What we learned during the COVID-19 pandemic era was a breathtaking reality. We witnessed a spike all over in violence against women as a result of the lockdown and other excessive hardships that families were encountering. And some of those hardships reflected themselves in what I call personally unnecessary violence, because partners were not able to engage each other, and there were limited space to understand the overall situations that the family was going through. So you found out that because of those differences, we witnessed a new dynamics, and that was excessive violence against women. And to some extent, the children were also victims in that process. So you heard about the statistics you just explained at the start. I mean, the spike in cases that were reported across the country, which was extremely abnormal. But we are trying to understand also what were some of the root causes of some of those violence that were reported. And the actual reality we are dealing with here is that there are structural issues that we need to address. And there are issues that has to deal with livelihoods that become extremely critical to ensure that the household is able to meet its basic needs. So again, I come to one critical aspect that is mostly ignored in deeper analysis of some of the root causes of gender-based violence, and that comes back to the issues of poverty, the issues of being able to provide for yourself, the issues of being able to meet your responsibility as members of the family. At times we push this under the carpet. We try to look at it from aggressive acts either at the household level, etc. The second element is mental health. At times I ask myself, what drives people into rape? You know, these are difficult questions to answer at times. But what we are learning today is that there are serious mental health considerations that one needs to learn from this moving forward. So mental health is becoming a critical element that is explaining some of this violence that we are witnessing today in our societies.
All right, Mr. Kallon, I was listening to last year the Deputy Secretary General's remarks, at a summit in Nairobi, and let me just read a little bit of it to you. She says, if the current levels of violence against women and girls persist, we will not achieve gender equality. We will not be able to implement the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. We're 10 years away from that. Looking at what you've described now as something very critical, are you fearful about meeting that target?
Yeah, there is one reality about the Sustainable Development Goals. And one of those goals is goal number 5, which talks about gender empowerment. And to me, that is the fine thread that weaves together all the 17 goals. So you can imagine if that umbilical cord is not existing, how do you expect those other elements of the Sustainable Development Goals to function? Women are productive members of society. Women contribute to household incomes in proportions that are difficult to determine. If you talk about our rural women, what they do from 7 a.m. in the morning up to 7 p.m. in the evening, you ask yourself, oh my God, how are people managing to cope with this type of pressures to be able to provide for a family? So to me, the issue of gender-based violence and gender itself, or gender empowerment to be precise, is so critical when we talk about sustainable development. And you are right, it's 10 years to go. And what has happened to us? Now we have a pandemic. A pandemic which our Secretary General has likened to an X-ray that has exposed the fractures in the societies we are building over the years. And this pandemic has also laid bare some of those risks we have ignored for quite a long time in society. So we are now at a stage where we're asking ourselves, we are behind on some of the sustainable development goals. Where do we want to head with them? But again, this pandemic creates its own opportunity. How can we use this desperate situation the whole world is facing today and transform that into positive energies that we contribute in building back better?
All right, Mr. Kallon,
and creating a society that is more inclusive.
All right, I was speaking to Mr. Kallon on the other half of the break, the UN Residence Coordinator of the UN. And let me just get your final comments now about what you were talking about. You're targeting audiences here in Nigeria and stakeholders as well. What new audiences would you like this initiative to target quickly now as we wrap up?
All for the better approach in addressing this issue here. I'm very pleased with the actions taken by the Governors Forum, establishing the rape as an emergency. And I'm also pleased with the establishment of the Interministerial Task Force on Gender-Based Violence. And I also participated recently in an outreach network with traditional leaders, all looking at the issues of gender-based violence. So to me, I mean, it's all not lost. But we, as my colleague said earlier, we are looking for transformative changes. We want institutions to come on board, institutions that can bring the legal and justice-related aspects that are so critical in ensuring that victims actually realize justice when they are affected by this gruesome act of violence, violence at home and violence at the workplace, etc. So we need institutions on board, from the judiciary right down. And we also need to actually be a little bit liberal on the issues of gender-based violence and other associated gruesome acts, that it is not a woman's issue. It's also an issue for men. And if we think that these are our women, we the men should be able to stand out for them, protect them in difficult situations, and also care for them as equal partners in society. So I say a whole of society approach remains extremely critical. It's difficult to start counting who and who should be part of this business. It cuts across. So we need a whole of society approach to the issue of gender-based violence, because that's the only way we are going to be able to find durable solutions to address them. And also have a judiciary system in place that we ensure that perpetrators are actually brought to justice. And then, of course, critical also to do a mass awareness raising around this issue of gender-based violence. Popular uprising is critical, and popular arrogance is also critical on this issue. It is just not acceptable anymore that we have to sit down and see the level of violence that is perpetrated against our women folk. This is not acceptable. So it's a whole of society call, and if we come together, we can stop this.